Listen and subscribe to the Table of Truth on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Blerdlines. This is your man, Cam. With me, as always, is...
the other Cam, a.k.a. the prodigal son, a.k.a. destruction.
As well as...
Oh, is that all? Jeez. This is Josh, a.k.a. the Sandman, a.k.a. Morpheus, a.k.a. the Dreamer.
And with us as well...
the most cynical, the most misanthropic, and the most intelligent professor of all,
a.k.a.
Boy,
Death.
D. Well, Death starts with D, and there you go.
Film Death.
And
the whole family here.
As you might have seen, we are talking The Sandman. Came out on Netflix. The great story by Neil Gaiman, legendary at this point.
Yeah.
Comic world, and now I'm glad that the regular people are starting to understand, because like a lot of people were like, "Oh, is this a comic?" So, yeah, guys, give me you guys' like first impressions just when you guys kind of you wrapped it up.
Can I start real quick, because I'm probably the least familiar with Sandman. It's one of those comics that I've always heard about, kind of like The Watchmen, but never got around to reading or just like really peeping.
It's funny, a lot of people have that same story with Sandman and Watchmen. I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it or read it. But,
So with that said, I was very intrigued. I read American Gods. There's another show on Netflix, I can't think of it, that he has that I'm intrigued to watch. And so I was like, okay, let me get a Sandman, because I've heard so many good things about it. Watched it. And the cool part for me personally is that I'm a fan of Constantine. Anything related to Constantine, I'm a Pete. And I was very intrigued by the other show, Lucifer, which I didn't know tied into the whole Sandman world. Yep. So with that being said, I was like, it's rare for me to see DC get wins. And then like outside of animation, to see a good, fantastic, imaginative world being put together for this, because this is an ambitious project, and from what I read, a lot of people tried to make this project happen, and somebody was smart enough to make this a series, and I thought this was cool. The vignettes, the short stories, the getting me to understand Sandman, and at the end of the day, I think this is gonna pivot me into go reading more material and really getting into the world of who Dream is, or Morpheus, and that whole world, and really become a fan. I like what I watched on Netflix, even though I'm coming from the outside looking in, so my expectations were non-existent. I didn't know what to expect, so it was cool.
Yeah, man, it was one of those things where it's like it's up there with Watchmen and all that, in terms of like the greatest comics and all that kind of stuff. And like I thought they just did a real thing. One, they got a nice budget, and then two, all the concept artists and everyone else, they really did their thing, where like they really made sure that this world got fleshed out, looked amazing. And then I thought they did a good job with the casting too. I thought casting from top to bottom, like it all, like there was no one I thought did a bad job. Like Desire he was awesome. Freaking Death was great too. And it was funny because I remember when Death got first announced, it was automatically like, hey, because of course, like all stuff, Death in the comics was a pale white chick and whatever. And so I thought the casting was great and spot on, and she did definitely a good balance. And the dude they picked as Sandman, like he killed that shit.
He was great, and I thought the look they did was grounded in a way that honored the comics but didn't make it look hokey. You know, that's one of the things that The Walking Dead struggled with. Some things just don't visually translate as well on screen, and the thing about Dream and all of the Endless is that they're primordial beings. So in the comics they look humanoid, but they also look not human, and I think you got that sense with what was his name, Tom Stutteridge, or I forget his how to pronounce his last name, but the actor that plays Morpheus, has that sort of deadpan, but it's not a laziness in performance as much as it is trying to show that distance between mortal being and a being that's literally existed for as long as existence as existed. Exactly. So yeah, it was a good first impressions of Sandman. They really did good. Visual magic is amazingly well done. There's a great scene, as we all talked about, that they pull from the comic, but a duel between Morpheus and Lucifer Morningstar, which again is, I always talk about certain stories just really doing magic horribly, but this was a good example of magic and having two primordial entities battle each other and visualize that in a way that human mortals can understand. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it was dope, and I think that I like that also. They give you a good flesh out of all of the realms, and you also got to see the types of magic. You get to see the meddling of humans and their hubris, and because of their hubris, they affect things. Yeah. And so that's the one thing I like. A lot of it was that like humans are meddling and stuff, and their hubris is really basically was fucking them up.
Right.
And then I like that, and then also for Morpheus I like that, he actually learned from his captivity, where he tried to come back like he was before, and people were kind of smacking him around, and then when he had to again, being essentially a god and then being trapped for like X amount of times, it definitely does a number on you.
Yeah, but the good thing, I think the cool thing that how they played it off was a part that had to be unpacked a little bit, because what is time to someone who's endless?
Yeah,
like he was trapped for I think 100 or so years, 70 some years, but to him it was
blink of an eye.
It was a blink and a blip, in comparison to how frustrated you saw the human characters who trapped him. For them that time was wasted. For him it's like, well, at some point I will get out of here. It's just a matter of waiting,
Yeah, nah, definitely. Josh, what you got?
I mean, it's rare that you get something that's that close and that true to the books.
Yeah.
When did you remember when those came out, Cam?
Oh man,
80s,
right? Yeah.
I was in junior high school when I read it.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't remember, but I was anti-DC, so I read it, but I didn't keep it. Like I traded it away, which was in hindsight really foolish.
Yeah.
But no, I did not need you to say yeah, D.
Yeah.
I know it was. That was one of the few things that I had in my possession. I had all of them, and it's one of the few things that I had in my possession that I truly, fully regret trading away. That was a dummy move on my part.
Thing with Sandman, because I had the whole collection and it just disappeared because it got lost. So my story is worse than yours. But anyway,
no, yours was by accident. Mine was deliberate.
Yeah, it came out in '89.
Okay,
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So I was in high school then. Yeah. It's rare that you get something that's this true to the book. And kudos to Neil Gaiman, who probably fielded something along the lines of about 20 years, maybe 25 years worth of offers.
Oh yeah.
Before he settled on Netflix and their take on it, because the people were just going to do all kinds of foolishness and all kinds of fuck shit. And
I think also seeing what happened to Alan Moore and a lot of his projects, I think he was kind of let me chill and find something that's really find people that are actually going to do it like justice. And I thought that was something that like you can definitely tell it took a while, and like he was pretty happy in terms of how it came out, and like he was talking about it on Twitter. He's but I think to me it was like one of those things where like this is done so well, like kind of like what Cam was saying, like you kind of cursorily know some of the world. Now you're involved. You're like, oh, okay,
you're
like,
in it.
Yeah, you want to learn more about Constantine and Lucifer and like that kind of stuff. And like and in the comics they do. I mean, they're really good. It's a really fleshed out story. Constantine's an awesome character.
Yeah,
and that's Constantine's probably the one like shining like Arrowverse moment that like consistently, no matter, and it deals with the actor as well, but like he was a consistently cool character no matter what dumbness they put him in. Like
how did you guys
Flash.
feel? How did you guys feel about the gender flip
for Lucifer? Oh,
not for Constantine.
Constantine. I thought it was okay. I was fine with it. Because the actress was really good and how the actor was great in how she in her performance of Constantine. It didn't feel like a different character. It felt like the same slime ball that you that can use. That is a great magic user. Like that's what I felt. And so I think, because the essence is there, it just didn't occur. Plus, knowing a little bit of the history of the comic, there is a Joanna Constantine in Gaiman's comic. And so that wasn't something that they just made up or just decided. They just reversed it. Instead of the John Constantine being the present day Constantine, he was the ancestor in the TV series, and Joanna was the present day. That's it.
And I think that was a good move, because I think for the people that know the Constantine character from the DC stuff, and then not seeing him would probably be jarring, or just wouldn't work. Like, and I thought she did a great job. Like you said, straight up dirtbag, like, very like, all that. But I thought that was a great job, because I would say like, her character, Death, both of them were like, their screen times when they were on screen, they fucking murdered that.
Yeah, they commanded the screen. You wanted to see more of them, and I think that was the case for a lot of things. As much as the story is about Dream, it's really about the characters he encounters, and the stories that he encounters, and the dreams that he encounters. And I think that the best example of that is with the episode 11 with the 1,000 Cats and Calliope.
Calliope. I was like, I would say cantaloupe. But I think that was a good episode too, because it was dope. Because again, what? Dream's married? What? He had a kid? Like, we didn't hear none of that shit. And like, we find all this out, and then the way they kind of play it out too. And I thought, I like that, as you're starting to find these different layers, and like, okay, they had a falling out, they're not talking anymore, but then she's in this dire strait, reaches out to him, and he shows up, and he's almost like, of course I would have showed up. But I like that they, like, again, every piece was just showing more about what he's been up to and all this other stuff. The other one episode I liked was the Let's Meet Every 100 Years, Immortals You.
That was my favorite too.
That was great.
Yeah, that was the Immortal. Person that was dope. It was another one where it's like, you could tell, like, he doesn't have any friends.
and that
was a great episode, actually. That might be my favorite of the series.
And that's magic grounded in something really human. Like, we're often questioning our mortality and the idea of what would life be like if we could live forever. But then only you as an individual, meaning the people you care about, that you love, the life you build will inevitably fall into dust, but you will keep going on. Is there a point in which you really do long? Because I also like that they presented death as being as misunderstood as it is in life, which is, for Dream, he doesn't see death as something bad, and for the Endless, when they believe that death is actually giving mortals a gift that they could, that they can't experience. So I thought that dynamic was great, because we see death as not this grim reaper, not the herald of the end, but possibly the start of something entirely different. And so that magical realism really pushed that forward visually, because there was no despair about death.
Yeah, and I like that she kind of
that was
talked about that too. That was a great episode, because I like that she's kind of saying, she's like, yo, this is my job, and then when my job's done, then and I like that there was no maliciousness behind it. She was just like, this is a fact of life, that this is what has to happen. This is my job. Your job is to do the dream stuff. My job is to do the death stuff. But I like hanging out with the humans sometimes and comforting them and like talking to them and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was a good depiction, and a good, like, if you've never seen the death character in the comics at all, like, that little bite that people got was a good snapshot. And I think even like you said with the I like that Dream was very like intrigued that he would assume that this human would want to actually die at some point, and every single time he's like, "Nah, I'm good, dude."
But even at the end of his like desperate speech of like, and I had to watch them all die, and it was just horrible. And you knew this, and then and Dream is like, "So, are you ready to die?" Finally, he's like, "What? No,
What's that?
He was like,
started."
He said, "Slow down, Turbo."
Yeah.
I thought it was cool, that episode in particular is that it did teach someone who's isolated above and beyond anything mere mortals can comprehend to understand humans. Right. And it took death, which you think death comes when we think of death, swift, cold, calculated. It just comes without warning to have compassion. They humanize death, you know. And it took death out of all of the 7 family members to show Dream, because you think Dream, when I hear the word dream, hope, positive things, right? But it took the opposite, death, to show Dream to not be so negative and look at the other side of humans, because she knew what he was going through, and she was like, if you do this, in my opinion, this is going to teach you more about compassion, empathy, et cetera, to have a deeper understanding about this world and how you interact with it and how you're able to go about doing your job, you know, because as the story goes, and I might be getting a taste of who Morpheus is in the beginning, being this cold character, but as the series wanes down, you get to see more of his softer side. Like the first impression I saw is when he was helping Joanna Constantine retrieve his sandbag, and he was like, "All right, we got it, let's go." And she was like, "Hold on, my friend's suffering, blah blah blah," and he found it in his heart to at least give her some type of peace. You know what I'm saying? And as the series goes along, we see more and more of those moments. And when that scene came up with him granting this dude life and meeting every 100 years to get a story, because it took like 300-400 years before dude really got to the meat of like what it is to be human. You know what I'm saying? It was like he still was moving the same way, and then when he finally at the end of the episode was like, someone to call my friend, boom, we have a moment, we have an epiphany of some sort to see that Sandman has changed. And they mentioned it, his librarian, everybody did. When he came back from being captured, everybody was like, something's different about you, bro. And he didn't want to admit it, because he was like, I'm never changing, I'm always a constant. I was like, no, everything changes. Even what's the character's name that he was chasing throughout the whole series with the glasses? Forgive me.
The Corinthian.
The Corinthian even said, "You changed, bro." He was like, "I've changed." He was like, "Everybody changed." I think part of that underlying thing was change, and all the characters changed, so it was cool.
And it's an irony of facts when you have an entity that's called Dream of the Endless. He's Dream, which elicits the thought of endless possibility, infinity, and he's trapped in a cage. But before that, that was the most time he had spent actually with humans and beginning to understand them. Before that, just being the sort of overseer of their dreams, he served a function as opposed to being able to really interact. And that's what Death was saying, that at some point she stopped just being the function of death, and she started to understand why, because she couldn't understand why people feared death, why humans feared death, why they did everything to avoid death, when in the mind of an entity that cannot die, that cannot end, why would you want to go on forever? Right? They don't have a choice. And I think that's an irony, an ironic fact that allows the story to be even more enriched, is because you don't have these primordial entities, well, maybe desire and despair, but death and dream eventually understand that humans really have an advantage, because we can die, we can end. Our lives are appreciated because we go through that one moment in space and time, and it's captured there. but they're just forever. They just go on and on
Yep.
as a function, as a cog in the celestial cosmic machine.
Yep, and I like how like even with like desires, machinations, it was kind of like, didn't work this time. Well, I'll get you next time.
Even if you look at how his sister Death finds him in the park moping, feeding pigeons, just like
yeah, just
like, dude, what is wrong with you? Come on, man. And it was great how that episode sort of developed and how his character sort of came out of the malaise that you found him in by the time he gets to the beginning of that episode. Like, it wasn't just she snapped him out of it. He's still kind of mopey. Yeah. But by the time he gets to granting homie immortality just to see what happens, that's where you start to see like his observation of the human condition and what it means to be human sort of informs his godhood.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the show starts to take a certain amount of where it starts to catch pace really, really, really well. Because at first you just kind of feel like, oh, there's a guy who captured, the entity Dream, and he's there for 100 years, or for almost 100 years. And he's sitting there with his leg crossed, and the Raven dies, but then another Raven pops. So you just like, okay, whatever. Not whatever. It's still good. But I don't think you really get to the humanizing aspects of what they do with that character until you start to see the episode with Death, until you start to see the episode where he befriends Dude who he grants immortality.
Yeah. Until he goes on an actual hero's journey. And that's when you start to see who this entity that's called Dream is and why we should care about him and what makes him unique, because again, he is, for lack of a better word, a god, an entity, a cosmic being that cannot die, will not die, and will exist as long as mortals exist. So until there's no mortal or nothing that's able to dream, he'll go on. And so that becomes a challenge for the storytelling to it's the same, we talked about American Gods, and this is one of the best things about Gaiman is that he finds these fantastical characters and figures and brings them down to a grounded level so that you're not just seeing gods, but you're seeing gods through the filter of humanity, which is how we understand gods to begin with. We understand them through how we understand ourselves. Look at all of the stories about the Greek pantheon, the Norse mythology. All these are stories that when you strip away the fantastical elements, they're just human narratives.
Yeah.
Can I add on?
Oh, go ahead, Cam.
I want to add on to that Gaiman has a propensity to, and from the few stories I read, that he makes these larger than life characters flawed weakness, the people they hold dominion, or the subjects they hold dominion of, especially in American God and Jesus Christ, Sandman.
And Sandman,
yeah. So it's like, if you don't dream, there's no
dream.
And American Gods, if you don't believe, like, that was a whole war.
Yeah.
When you stop believing, that's when a god loses his power.
That's when they stop. Yeah.
But they're, from the outside looking in, they're more powerful than the regular human. But the human,
they get
in that story has the real power.
Yeah.
And isn't that the case with everything? What about government? What about things
money?
like money? It's like every god
power
that
to the
exists. Exactly, exists in the minds of humans. So we don't know that, and that's not to say for the listeners who are religious that there is no God. I'll leave that up to someone else to decide. But at the end of the day, these things exist, and so that's why it was great about Gaiman and Dream and all that. Like Dream tells, is it despair he tells that, or desire is like, you just don't get it. Like, we don't exist. They don't exist to serve us. We exist because they believe we exist, because they believe in us.
Yeah.
So,
and I like how they reinforce that with the Cats short. which is cool because I was like, when I saw it, I was like, wait, where's this going? What's going on? And then it comes around, and I was like, oh, this is dope because it just reinforces that same theme that they have running through this whole thing, which I thought was awesome. And then I like that, even with like the Corinthian as well, right? Like he's a nightmare, and he inspired a whole, since Dream's gone, he's like, cool, I'm basically gonna do my own inspiring. And the serial convention was actually pretty hilarious. The way they
brilliant.
The way they put it together,
so
and
gnarly and brilliant at the same time. I mean,
I like that if this is under DC or Vertical, that they always have these dark ass, like they made it a little lighthearted in the show, but I can imagine what this read like in the comic.
Oh, it was, and just even like I was saying, the DC. How present DC is in this series, you would never know unless you looked it up or you were familiar. Wonder Woman's daughter is there, and one of the Dr. Fates is there. I won't say who they are.
Wonder Woman's daughter was her friend was the Dream Vortex's friend Lyta, right?
Well, I wasn't gonna say. I was gonna let the audience, the listener, go out and look it up themselves.
We done spoiled everything else.
I mean, I guess you're right. We have spoiled most of it, but what's her name? Lyta. That's Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor's daughter, and
in the Golden Age.
In the Golden Age, yes. Hasn't been for a long time, but in the Golden Age. As well as her husband is the son of the character that plays her dead husband is the son of Shayara and Carter Hall, aka Hawk and Hawkman and Woman.
Yep. So they did a lot of real like little pieces of just like drop in there, and I thought that was a great job because again, it's not overly explained, but if you did find it, then it just adds another layer to it.
Yeah,
definitely.
And Gaiman was always good at writing for DC. I think for an outside author who has created his own world, he's given them a lot of because Lucifer, I mean, that character is straight up from Neil Gaiman, and a lot of the characters that he has created have been incorporated into other DC, like even John D, Dr. Destiny. He was the main villain in the Elseworlds on Arrowverse story. So he's given them a lot to work with over the years, and it's always great. So I'm glad that the Sandman is on screen because he held out just like a lot of authors of his sort of cohort did with their stuff, and it's paying off big time for him.
Yeah. The one thing I thought, the one thing I thought was pretty cool was when in Sandman they referenced that when he left his post, they didn't know why, but it was like, oh yeah, this is not the first time someone's left their post. then it goes back to me,
which is a foreshadow.
Yeah, but it also it took me back to the Lucifer series because
that's what I'm talking about.
He left this post because he was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and he abandoned being the prince of hell. And I didn't really put two and two together. I was like, that was Lucifer's whole premise, just leaving his post, and just being human and understanding what it means to be human and doing something different. He didn't want to be the guy that was the hell incarnate,
Well, in the series, they sort of to soften it, they make it seem as if he wants to be human.
Yeah.
In truth, Lucifer left hell to come to Earth to be decadent, to do whatever he wants because he is one of the most powerful entities in the world. He just stopped caring about overthrowing God and ruling hell. He just wanted to live a life that he wanted, and that's what made the story interesting. But no, he wasn't interested in being. In fact, Lucifer was collecting souls by selling dreams, and no pun intended. And so he was an anti-hero through and through. They hint at that heavily. And also a great moment was when Dream makes reference of hope and all that hope of returning home. That's straight up Paradise Lost, because Milton-esque Lucifer, because you see when he says that, Lucifer kind of almost tears up for a moment because the Paradise Lost version of Lucifer isn't an evil devil that just hated mankind. The Paradise Lost Lucifer and the Gaiman Lucifer is the loyal, faithful son who said, Father, why are we asked to bow to these petty murderous creatures? And God said, because I said so. Now go. and so that was clearly visually shown that even though Lucifer is where he is, he still pines for heaven, for a return to heaven, and a return to God's good graces.
And I like that because then even with the Lucifer series, I remember when it first came out, it was like, oh, the devil's too sexy. Why is the Lucifer so sexy? And again, trying to mix up for the Lucifer in the series, and in the books as well, it adds that level of just like, it's people have a vision of what the devil is, quote unquote, and they always want to keep that specific image. But then when you start to show, hey, maybe Lucifer has other machinations, maybe this, that, and people are eventually will hold on to what they assume the devil is, quote unquote.
Right. And we should be referring to them as they.
they. But yeah, so that yep. But even the depiction of hell with all the demons and stuff like that. And I like how they were show that as well. But it was cool because I think overall, especially for Sandman, for someone so powerful, and then his quote unquote trinkets got lost, and he had to sit there and go find it. And then again, this stuff's not for humans, but the humans are out here rocking with it, thinking they can do what they want. It goes back to the hubris of humans, which is kind of a theme almost through almost all the episodes.
That's a theme in all of fantasy, but
yeah, basically.
My favorite moment is when Patton Oswalt's the raven or the crow is like, listen, man, I know I've only been dead for a little bit and a bird for a little while, but trust me, saying this as a human, you cannot trust them. You cannot trust humans. And he was talking about Joanna Constantine. So it's as much as the fantasy elements are great, just the interactions between the characters and the way they're written is very much like Gaiman's work, which is a mixture of the high fantasy with a little bit of horror, but not too much horror, with some comedy and with some good-hearted fun.
Yeah, exactly. And then one of the other standout characters was Lucien's character, and I thought the casting was great, and I like that it took him a while to realize how important Lucien was in his whole realm in terms of how people looked at stuff. He's sitting there like, yo, man, I am the man. I'm supposed to be doing all this stuff. But then everyone's like, yeah, but you were gone, so someone had to run this shit.
Yeah, he was definitely like, it's cool that you held it down for 100 years. I've been doing this forever. Woman.
But let me ask y'all this: what made him come back and apologize? What was the turning point where he was like, "Yo, I was tripping"? He's like, "I want to highlight your importance. I don't want to downplay it." He was just like,
if I remember correctly, somebody else sent him, and kind of made him realize that every part is important, and I think sort of reiterated that, Lucien kind of was you while you were gone.
Was it the pumpkin head?
Yeah.
He was one part. He
was one bit.
It was a combination of a few things said to him
that made him put it episode where Pumpkinhead shows up.
Yeah, because Pumpkinhead said something. Oh, I think it was when
he was like, should I tell Lucien?
Yeah.
He's like, why are you telling her? I'm the one you should be telling. And he was like, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah, because he quickly was like, I shouldn't have said that to the king. Right, because he definitely didn't respond well. So it was I think it was a combination of a few things that made him.
Yeah, it was a bunch of things in that one episode, but somebody asked him something, and then he responded harshly about Lucien. He was like, well, again, why is everybody going to this chick? And they were, and I forget who it was, but someone was like, well, she kind of ran things while you were gone. She
It
held
might
it
have been
together.
Cain or Abel. I think it was one. It was Cain or Abel that said
Yes.
that to him.
Yes, it was Cain.
When
It was
he
Cain
brought
and Abel.
them
The
I
new
think
dragon.
it was when he brought them the new dragon,
Yes.
and they said
Yep.
something along the
Or
lines
the
about
gargoyle.
or the gargoyle. That's what exactly what it was, the gargoyle. And by the way, Cain and Abel were brilliant. They were. I just could not get enough of those guys. Like they were hilarious.
Yeah, I think that their dynamic was dope, and then again is another diamond of like, you know, taking something that was existing and then put a nice little twist to it and then adding something, another layer to it. So it's like, oh, I've heard the story of Cain and Abel, and then you're like, whoa, that's not the story I've seen before.
I like that Neil Gaiman again. My short experience with his stuff is that he takes real world elements and puts a spin on it. Like the whole like in American Gods, his belief in East or the whole Easter concept, the whole Jesus concept, the whole Odin and how we perceive it throughout history.
Yeah,
and he does the same in Sandman, how we perceive some of these I mean, what's the word you call it? But the thing of desire, how we perceive it, but how it's looked upon in this world, you know, and same with Dream and how it's looked upon and how he's all powerful, and it just peels back layers. So I like that Neil, and I'm expressing this poorly, but I just like how he builds on those like simple concepts and makes a whole world around it that just gives it a whole new spin to heroes and villains and this whole fantastical idea of something that we in real life take for granted. I think, you know,
Yeah,
he subverts
totally.
that a lot. I mean, I think one of what you pointed out about the irony of you know how he positions really what he did in American Gods was just position it with the original myths, with Easter and with specifically with the Vikings. We know Marvel Odin, but the Norse Odin was a bloodthirsty, wanted blood, like wanted that type of sacrifice made to him, to his name, and that's how that a lot of those Norse mythological and Scandinavian myths are told. And so I think that's what American Gods did, was just what he did best was just strip away the sort of modern idea of those figures. So Odin is the All Father, and you know, this old man that looks almost like Gandalf, and it's true, but he's also a capricious god who wants his the way his subjects have to worship him is by waging war and murdering and reaving and pillaging.
Yeah,
the Viking way.
So I think now I would say for our final words, instead of like, you know, I would think what do you hope that happens with this the Sandman series and stuff? Because, you know, again, it hasn't got renewed yet, quote unquote, as always. But what would you hope that what do you think is going to be next for Sandman?
You just answered it for me. Renew it. That's it. Keep it going. Like I said, I'm not familiar with the comic itself in its entirety, but from what I saw in the series, I'm going to read the comic, but I want them to continue something good. And from what I heard, even this great show that's getting a lot of reviews is still on the cusp of getting a second season. So, you know, maybe I have to go in and watch it all in its entirety. And I just saw a tweet about something real quick. Let the episode play out to its end because I guess it helps its numbers. And because I tend to like stop it when the credits roll just to get to the next episode. Maybe I'll rewatch the season and just have it playing in the background so if they can get the numbers up. If that's the case, so we can get a season 2, because this is one of them cool ones. Because like I said, the guy that created the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I can't think of his name right now.
Alan
Moore, his stuff has been butchered. So to see gaming stuff translate well to the big screen, I just wanted a second season, and if possible, a third if they want to take it there. So let's keep it moving.
Yeah,
Alan Moore said yes too many times, but he learned.
Yeah.
He learned eventually.
Yeah.
Nah, he definitely did, because I think that's. I mean, and also too, for me, I hope that they, of course, renew it. That's one, but then also that they actually, like, you know, because the world of the Sandman is so vast that like this could easily be spinoffs and small one. Like I hope they do more anthology stuff. That would be amazing. Like if they just maybe they do a series of just like shorts, like they did like the 11th episode where it was just two short situations. I think because like the world is so vast that it would be fun for them to do a lot more anthology type stuff. And I know a lot of people are already like, oh, Death should have her own series, and this person, I don't really care about all that. Like, just tell good stories, just keep the same quality.
Yeah.
And like we don't need if all they can do is just 10 episodes every time. Hey, it's quality. That's all we care. Do not milk this dry like every other IP that kind of comes in and they just like, oh, we're gonna build a universe. We're gonna have this, that. Like, nah, man. Let's just like enjoy it and like tell a good story. Josh.
I'm in agreement with everything you just said. I think they've done a great job of building a world around the character. I think they did it right, and I think it's funny because while everything sort of interconnects, it also felt a little anthology like. It felt like there were aspects of it
very much.
Yeah, he's just going about, being Dream and, studying the human condition, but also like the fact that, a bunch of people fell asleep when he was gone, and the woman that was asleep for 100 years becomes the great grandmother of a dream vortex. And they show her in the episode where everyone goes to sleep as Dream is captured. And you think it's just something, a casual fact that's related to just that one episode, permeates pretty much through the entire series down the line of episode 7 or 8, whatever it was with the Dream, where they started with the Dream Vortex.
Yeah.
Expert storytelling. So I think you get a little bit of anthology along with your serial, So I think I'm okay with how they're doing what they're doing. I definitely want more. Like they've more than earned, and I love that. I hope this is a sign of things to come for Netflix, where it seems like they're angling more towards more quality and less quantity. If they're doing that, like The Gray Man was a fun, silly, ridiculous movie that it wasn't connected to anything, came and went, did what it needed to do. Chris Evans and what's his name? Oh God,
Gosling.
Thank you, and Ryan Gosling just absolutely killed it in that movie. And I don't need a sequel. It was fine. It was good. So likewise with this, I hope that this is a sign of more quality coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, definitely. And then finally, D'Angelo.
Yeah, I mean, it's been said. We all want season 2 of Sandman in whatever form it comes, whether it be
somebody getting murdered.
We want it in every form that it comes, whether it be anthology or serial drama. But I think I worry more about the idea of Warner Brothers Discovery maybe trying to pull it onto HBO from Netflix, because it is a DC property, and who knows when they what the contract was before this new company formed. So that's more of a behind the scenes industry worry, but it's totally, I think Netflix will renew it. I think they are probably just needing to work out bigger deals because it is a DC story, and we see now that it's got potential to be a big hit. I mean, it is a hit in terms of as far as Netflix goes. So yeah.
No, this could be their their hope for a flagship show, which I think they've been looking for a while. So if they don't fumble the bag with and keep it from getting up to HBO Max, something like that, they might actually have it.
I think it's fine if it goes to HBO Max. It just needs to maintain the level of quality that they're currently. And I mean, I think they also they've seen what happens when meddling happens. So hopefully, with new management in the chair, hopefully, and it seems like they're gonna just let people do what they do, and not really meddle, God willing. So yeah, I think whether it's on HBO, I think it should stay on Netflix. I agree with you, but I think if it shovels over to HBO Max, as long as it maintains the level of quality that's been established for season 1, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed.
Facts on facts. All right, well, once again, this is Blerdlines, and we are out.
Peace.
Later.